Family and domestic violence is any behaviour that's designed to dominate and control another person and make that person feel fear. So probably for the person experiencing the violence, the way it's experienced is just feeling fearful for yourself, for your own safety, or for the safety of other family members. The violence can be expressed in many different ways. It can be expressed physically, of course, but it can also be psychological or emotional. So it can be about persistent name calling and put downs, but normally it will be a range of behaviours that are designed to really undermine the other person and undermine their sense of confidence. The most important thing that a frontline worker can offer a woman is help to develop a safety plan. But before you start doing any planning for safety or discussing a safety plan with a woman, you need to have a really comprehensive knowledge of what's going on for her. She also has to have an opportunity to fully articulate that herself in order for her to have a good understanding of what her level of risk might be. There are a lot of barriers to women disclosing or fully disclosing to you. Maybe the biggest barrier is that many women tend to minimise or even deny the abuse that's going on, and this is usually a coping strategy. It's a coping strategy that is really useful for her in daily life, and it's something that you might need to work with her in terms of interviewing to break down.
The first few sentences would be really important to build the trust and to engage with the woman. And oftentimes she might use her own belief system and values in terms of minimizing the abuse. So you would acknowledge the differences, you would have respect for their culture and her own value system, yet reinforce laws and support system in Australia.
With building relationships with our women, we let them lead the conversations, we let them lead the way because it is their journey. We're just there to help them along the way.
You establish which risk factors are present by asking a lot of questions, by encouraging a woman to tell her story. It may be there's been a recent incident, in which case you would just help her to unpack that incident and talk about the detail of that. If not, to talk about the history of the abuse, what behaviours have been present, to really focus on the behaviours of the perpetrator of the abuse and to ask her for examples. In that way, you're capturing the detail of the abuse, and without this, you can't truly assess risk.
Our risk assessment, we use the same tool as other services, so the common risk assessment. We also ask certain questions around who the perpetrator is for safety reasons for the worker themselves and for the woman.
Women from CALD background might be in a situation where there are complex family dynamics, arranged marriage, forced marriages, in-laws, really adds to the complexity of the family dynamics and or relationship that she might be in.
There are a number of risk factors that are widely understood to point to an elevated risk, and some to point to a risk of lethality, possible death. So these are risk factors like pregnancy or new birth, a new baby, past serious assaults that involve things like choking, which is very common in family violence scenarios where there's physical violence, the use of weapons in assaults and threats to use weapons, the abuse of pets and threats of pets. And then there are some risk factors that pertain to children, such as threatening or directly abusing children. Once you have a sound understanding of what risk factors might be present, it's really important to ask her about her assessment of the level of risk. And the way to ask this is to ask her how frightened she is.
Safety plan and risk assessments is good to continue to do them, because the woman's situation can change at any time. So it's about revisiting to make sure that we've covered all the areas possible for her risk, as well as the risk of the workers and her children.
It's really important for workers to assess immediate safety needs of women and children in family violence situation. However, connection and referral to a specialist organization for ongoing support becomes very important. So women continue to have that support system in place for her for future.
In relation to Aboriginal women and privacy, we ask that you get consent from the woman if it's okay to contact an Aboriginal service. If not, don't do so. Don't assume that she wants to be referred to an Aboriginal service. She has the right to choose what services she wants to be linked into.